Good evening and welcome to the October 24th regular meeting of the City of Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission.
State law establishes planning commissions. This planning commission is comprised of 9 residents appointed to serve our community. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. Other individuals participating in the meeting include representatives of the city's planning department, city's attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates.
If you wish to address the Planning Commission at the appropriate time, please come forward to the lectern and clearly print your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission and not to anyone else in the room. If you have a cell phone or any other device that might disrupt the meeting, please either switch it to the silent mode or turn it off. At this time, I'll ask our Planning Commission Recording Secretary, Kathy Zarnecki, to conduct the roll call.
Mr. Buechner?
Here.
Mr. Faison? Mr. Fox?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krent? Mr. Lambert?
Here.
Ms. Malala Here. Ms. Parakis?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here.
Quorum present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of tonight's agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve? Mr. Fox moves to approve tonight's agenda, and Ms. Parakis seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala Yes. Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Buechner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is the approval of the minutes from the September 26th meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes? Ms. Malala makes the motion, and Mr. Buechner seconds it. Any discussion on the minutes from the meeting in September? Seeing none, we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Malala Yes. Ms. Parakis?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Buechner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission for an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing, yep, come on up. And you have 3 minutes to comment, so, okay.
I'd just like to say one of the nice developments that I've seen happening in the city of Troy is the idea of more like a flat type development. And I think my wife and I support that idea. But I think what got missed in some of the translation is the difference between a rental type community and a purchase type community. So we were hoping for more of a mortgage-based solution in that. Thank you.
Great. Make sure you sign in your name there on the sign-in sheet.
Would you
I actually already
please
did.
state your name at this time, please, sir?
Daniel Bouchot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the commission for an item not on tonight's agenda? Come on up.
My name is Jeff Williams. I'm 159 Telford. Tonight's agenda was supposed to have a rezone request for the Square Lake Livernois area. That'll be next.
Mr. Sabanet, do you know what the date is for that?
Yes. So to give some background, so there was a public hearing originally scheduled for the 24th. We sent mailings out, and we postponed that item till the 28th of November. And we, as quickly as we could, we sent notices to the same people that got the originals to inform them of the change date. And it sounds like you received the first notice, but not the second notice?
I got the second notice. Yeah, we're all
Okay.
set. I just wanted to personally invite anybody from this committee to come to Telford Ridge and just walk the sub maybe, just to get a feel for what it's like, what the community's like, what our subdivision is like, the quietness of the subdivision, and just get a different perspective versus just driving down the road and saying, oh, this is the pretty picture and the overhead view of the map. Well, I'd like to see someone's yard. I'd like to see multiple yards from the Telford Ridge. So that's all I got. If anybody, I'm going to send my email and my cell phone info and address. So I'm serious. Anybody, please, you can call me up. Hey, I'd like to swing by and just take a look from your yard. What this area is going to be, the request for the rezone. So, thank you.
Thank you. Did you sign in on the seat?
I did.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the commission on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Seeing no one else coming forward, then we will move on to item 5, which is a public hearing for a conditional rezoning and special use approval, CR JPLN 2023-001, a proposed Jack's Car Wash, north side of Big Beaver, east of Rochester, PIN 88-20-23-401-036, Section 23 from O Office to IB Integrated Industrial and Business District. And I believe Mr. Savident has some opening words.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the application that was submitted for this conditional rezoning. You'll note here, it says the current zoning is O Office, and they propose to rezone to IB Integrated Industrial and Business. It's pretty clear on the application. And then when you get into the conditional rezoning application itself, trying to find it on the screen here, but it's right here. They want to rezone from O to IB. So we processed this application, started processing it. We notified in the newspaper and sent mailings out that their intent was to rezone from O to IB. Pretty simple. Until you remember that the zoning map here is zoned O and P vehicular parking. There's a portion here that's zone P parking. And we have split zoning. It's fairly common in Troy. So when we received the application, it seemed pretty obvious that their intent was to leave the P parking entirely alone and just rezone the O portion of it. However, once we dug a little deeper after the notification was sent out, their intention is to voluntarily offer conditions related to the P parking property. And we thought it was because of the fact that there could have been residents at home that got notice and it just said, oh, they're just going to rezone from O to IB. They weren't even, the P parking wasn't going to be affected at all. There could have been residents that stayed home tonight, even though it's the intent of the application to include this as part of the conditional rezoning by adding some protection layers. They don't propose to touch it, but they do propose to address it in the conditional rezoning application. So we had discussions with the petitioner, the petitioner's attorney, this assistant city attorney, ourselves today, and we thought that the right thing to do was to postpone this item to notify it properly with actually describing it, including the P parking, to make it very clear for anyone who wanted to attend this public hearing. We thought it was the right thing to do. So with that in mind, all the staff, assistant city attorney, the applicant and their attorney have agreed that there's going to be no deliberation on this tonight, like there's going to be no decision made tonight by the Planning Commission, but it's a public hearing. Anyone who's here this evening that wants to speak on the public record can do so. The plan is to postpone this until the first meeting in December, which is December 12th at 7 p.m. So any comments that are made this evening would be part of the minutes of this meeting. They'd be printed, they'd be made available on December 12th. So if you speak tonight, your comments will be in the public record. And if you wanted to attend on December 12th to observe the deliberation, to speak again on the item, you're certainly welcome. But the intent at this time is for staff to make their presentation, the detailed presentation, which they typically do. The Planning Commission may have questions, some back and forth. The petitioner will come up and present. The Planning Commission may have questions. Open the public hearing, close the public hearing, but not deliberate, not take any action this evening. It would come back on December 12th. Julie, did I miss anything?
I think you covered it. Everyone's going to get new notices that's going to reflect the correct zoning designations.
Everyone will get a notice that clearly says that the intent is to rezone. They're going to formally amend the application to say that they're going to rezone that P property, although they're not going to touch it, but it's going to be included. So there's going to be more clarity in the application than is there now, because both Ben and I are certified planners, and when I looked at it and he looked at it, we read the application differently. So it is confusing. And I don't, for the record, I don't think it was intended to be confusing. It just, that's how it happened.
Okay, thank you. And I saw someone in the audience has their hand up. We can't take any questions at this time, but what we will do is when you come up for public hearing, then you can ask any questions at that point in time. So. Okay, when we do public hearing, then you can do that then. Thank you. So anyone on the commission have questions for Mr. Savinant on
I
the
do. I need
procedure?
some clarification. If we are not going to be in a decision-making mode tonight, are our comments going to be restricted as to thoughts or just questions? Or I'm a little curious as to how we can respond if we want to.
So we talked about that, Mr. Hudson. I think the appropriate thing is if you have questions for Mr. Carlisle, certainly if you have questions for the applicant, because he's going to make a presentation, you can ask those questions, you can seek clarification. But when it comes back to the table, there will be no resolution recommending approval or recommending denial, so you won't have any deliberation on the actual item, because the only resolution that should be put forward is a resolution to postpone the item. So there should not be any deliberation on an up or down vote for this particular item tonight. Does that clarify?
It sort of helps.
Mr. Savinant, do you have more?
Also, while I very much enjoy Mr. Carlisle's presentations, they really speak to me, and I'm sure the applicant's going to have a very heartfelt presentation. They're going to be very detailed, and I don't know if we need to see the presentation twice. So, given the fact that all our meetings are on YouTube, we've got 2 members absent this evening. They can certainly watch to prepare themselves for the next meeting. Any resident who wasn't able to attend this meeting can go on YouTube and watch. But I don't think it's necessary to have the same presentations repeated on December 12th, if you agree, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I would think that would be what the commission would prefer.
And if I can just clarify, I think what Mr. Savinant is saying, we'll open up the public hearing tonight, and we'll open up the public hearing on December 12th. It's just that presentation portion is going to be short-circuited a little bit.
So at the time, if you get up to speak tonight, you can come back at the next meeting and speak it then as well. So, all right. Any other questions for either Mr. Savinant or Ms. Dufresne? Seeing none, then we'll kick it off to Mr. Carlisle for his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I hope to move Mr. Savinant tonight with my presentation. So a little background for the audience and the Planning Commission. A conditional rezoning, a special use, and a site plan has been submitted to construct a Jack's Car Wash on a 3.4 acre site. The site is located on the north side of Big Beaver, east of Rochester Road, and west of John R. Road. Currently, the site is undeveloped, but is bisected to the north by a pipeline. You can kind of see it through those patch of in those trees. We went over this briefly. The site has 2 different zoning designations on it. While not unusual, it's not a best practice and something that we're trying to correct and alleviate moving forward. The current site is zoned both O, which is approximately the 3 acres that abut Big Beaver, and approximately 0.4 acres in the back is zone V, vehicular parking. The P parking district is what I like to refer to as a legacy district. It was a district that was included in the previous zoning ordinance, and the purpose of it was to really provide a buffer between the more intense uses on Big Beaver and other major corridors, and against those less intense residential districts that abut those parcels. With regards to surrounding zoning, to the north is R1E, it's a single-family residential neighborhood. To the south is IB zoning designation. To the east is office, to the east is office, and to the west is also office. The applicant is proposing to rezone the entire parcel to I1B for the purpose of constructing a car wash. A car wash in the IB is a special use. A car wash is not permitted in the O district, hence the reason for the request for rezoning. As Director Savinant went over, the application was a little confusing with regards to the P parking district. It's been clarified that the applicant is seeking a rezoning of the entire parcel, not just the portion that's currently zoned O. The master plan for this particular parcel, you can see the kind of little star is the parcel in question. It's currently master plan for Smart Zone. The Smart Zone was first identified in the Big Beaver corridor study, which was previously to the current master plan. And it's the only district in this study that actually was called out specifically to remain a future land use category in the current and future updated master plan. As set forth, the master plan envisions the Smart Zone as an area dominated by high-tech uses, which are on the cutting edge of innovation. It recognizes that due to its strategically located location regionally, it's a great location for advanced technology companies. But it does also note that there are other uses that will complement those uses, including light industrial, research, development, and office uses. The master plan noted, and it kind of continues to this day, that much of the Smart Zone area is currently occupied by vacant or underutilized office and industrial facilities, which could be redeveloped for these high-tech uses or complementary uses of those high-tech uses. So as part of the deliberation, the Planning Commission should consider if the rezoning to IB Business District is consistent with the intent of what we are trying to achieve here in the Smart Zone by the facility of a new car wash. Since this is a conditional rezoning, the applicant has voluntarily offered the following conditions. The first is that unless improved by the city, the use of the property would be limited to an automatic car wash only. The property shall be only developed in accordance with the site plan. And lastly, the developer will preserve the green space on the north side of the property being a minimum of 167 feet as shown on the site plan. And this would be preserved in an area of natural state and should not be used for any other use in connection with the car wash. This 167 feet is actually a little bit larger than the parking designation of the zoning of the parcel, and I'll show where that designation is on the site plan. Again, if the conditional rezoning is recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, a rezone agreement would be drafted and go to the City Council for consideration. There are 5 standards that the Planning Commission should consider when considering a rezoning. The first is the conditions proposed by development are designated to promote public health, safety, and welfare. The conditions proposed are consistent with the master plan. The conditions proposed or the development is in accordance with all the terms and provisions of the zoning district to which is being rezoned. The fourth standard is public service facilities can service this particular development and site. And lastly, the conditions proposed shall ensure compatibility with adjacent uses of property. With regard specific to the site plan, the site is outlined in red, and the car wash itself is this blue box kind of in the interior of the site. The site will be accessed off of one point on Big Beaver with the ingress only, and a second point with an egress only, also off of Big Beaver. There is also a future proposed third connection point with the adjacent office building just to the east.
That's mine. Come through my driveway.
So the rear of the site, as noted, will remain undeveloped in the form of the preserved woodlands. Again, the area that zone parking is currently this kind of line at this location. So it extends the area that's being preserved as open or green space extends past or is larger than what the area of the proposed parking designation is. We do note, just based off scaling, the nearest residential lot, which is located just north of that red line, is about 250 feet from where the vacuum and mechanical units are, which are located in this general area. One of the questions that we have for the applicant is the confirmation of noise, and I guess I should add lighting to this, what the potential noise and lighting impacts would be to the nearby residential based on the proposed use. We do note that with regards to the building itself, if rezoned, it does meet all the IB setback and height restrictions. We do note there is some questions or concerns with overall layout and circulation. Specifically, once you enter the site, you have 2 options to proceed. You either proceed north into a stacking area, or you proceed to the left or to the west to get into the vacuum area. We do note that once you enter the vacuum area, you cannot circle back and go through the car wash itself without leaving the site, going out onto Big Beaver and circling around and coming back in this entrance. There's no way to get from this vacuum area back into the stacking area for the car wash. So I don't know how most people do car washes. I typically do if I go to a car wash, I do the vacuum first, and then I circle around and go through the wash itself. This would preclude you from doing this. This would require you to go back onto Big Beaver and circle around to get back onto the site. So we are asking the applicant to clarify the logic or thought behind the circulation pattern for this particular layout. Similar to the question on layout is the need or question for the amount of parking and stacking spaces. So by ordinance, they're required to have 10 parking spaces for general use with 12 stacking spaces. They're proposing 10 spaces with 22 vacuum spaces and 36 stacking spaces. So overall, we find it does meet the ordinance requirements, but it's significantly, in our belief, over parked as well as overstacked with regards to how many stacking spaces they have. So we are asking consideration, if this does move forward, that they consider eliminating some of the vacuum areas as well as some of the stacking areas. The applicant did provide a full landscape plan. We do note that with the change in use from vacant to the car wash, it does require screening in compliance with regards to the adjacent properties. We did note that their current landscaping is not compliant with regards to buffering on both the east and west property line. In addition, we do note that there's no internal landscaping within the vacuum areas and the parking lot area itself. All the landscaping is on the periphery of those two locations, so we are again asking consideration to either reduce the number of spaces and or add landscaping to soften up or break up that significant area. Elevations have been proposed. The materials include CMU block on the base with brick for the most part being used, and lap board siding on the front and side of the building. This is a rendering of the building looking from the vacuum area at the side of the building. This is a rendering of the site, just for layout orientation. Down here is Big Beaver. You would enter this location, come up into the stacking area, circle through the back of the building, come through to the drive-through, to the car wash area, come around into the vacuum area. This is the area they're preserving as the open space woodland, and then back here would be the residential houses, which aren't shown on this current elevation. There are 3 standards the Planning Commission should consider with regards to the site plan. Consistency with ensure compatibility with existing commercial districts, incorporate best architectural practices, as well as enhance the character and safety for pedestrians and motorists. There are 7 standards for the special use for the car wash use itself. Some of them are similar to the rezoning standards: consistency with master plan, consistency with adjacent uses, potential traffic impact, impact on public services, compliance with zoning ordinance standards, impact on the overall environment, and any special use specific requirements. So in summary, Mr. Chairman, the Planning Commission is asked to hold a public hearing and consider public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Any questions for Mr. Carlisle? Mr. Hudson.
Mr. Carlisle, how many smart zones do the master plan include?
One smart zone. It's a future land use designation. It's pretty, go back to the map here.
We've got one smart zone under the master plan.
One smart zone in the entire master plan, correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's, just for clarity, Mr. Chairman, it's the entire kind of purplish area that extends into, to the southern end, pretty far south of where Big Beaver is.
Mr. Fox.
So I see along the northern end of that master plan designation on the north side of Big Beaver, there's that small area that's designated public and quasi-public. Is that the Balkan American Society?
Correct.
Or, okay, I just wanted to confirm.
Just for clarity for the public, it's this blue little box here. That's the adjacent parcel, which is the Balkan American side that you noted.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tagle.
Could you talk a little bit about spot zoning and why you feel this isn't a spot zoning situation, whereas this is the only IB in that whole area?
So spot zoning is it's not a technical term, but it's kind of a slang term we use for zoning purposes with regards to where zoning is not consistent in one particular location with surrounding zoning properties. Mr. Tagle, to your point, the application in question is this one here, which is again mixed zoning. To each end of it is currently office zoning, which is consistent with the current zoning of the property and consistent with the master plan. To the south is IB zoning district, which is obviously south of Big Beaver. The applicant is requesting to rezone this parcel to be consistent with that parcel. In one sense, the zoning to IB is inconsistent because it is the adjacent zoning to the east, west, and north is office zoning, which is again consistent with the master plan. On the other hand, one could argue that it may not be spot zoning because there is adjacent IB zoning just to the south of this particular property. What I would consider when you consider rezoning is necessarily may not affect the idea of the spot zoning, but is this consistent with what the intent of the master plan is? And is it consistent with some of the surrounding land uses, both to the east, west, and north, but also what's to the south as well?
Thank you. Mr. Beekner.
I have two questions. So we've determined that's a smart zone. Does a car wash fit in that smart zone category?
By the list of uses in the master plan, a car wash would be inconsistent with the intent of what we're trying to achieve in the smart zone. It's not a listed use that would be typically found in what the smart zone is trying to achieve.
Thank you. My second question, the green space there for this plan, I heard you say a pipeline. I drove by it on all sides. I see a lot of trees. Are there the nice trees? Are there swampy areas? Are there wildlife concerns? I mean, I like that there's a lot, generally I like that there's a lot of green space there. But can you speak to the
yeah, so the applicant did do a tree survey. As you will see in many of wooded areas in Troy, there are a lot of, there's a significant amount of trees. The trees themselves are not of high quality. There are a lot of invasive trees that we typically wouldn't want to be planted again. That being said, trees for trees' sake worth preservation are important, and so the applicant is preserving a large swath of treed area, but in terms of the quality of the trees in the area, they're nothing of significance, importance in quality in terms of what they're both preserving as well as what they're having to remove for this development. That being said, the way our tree preservation ordinance is written, you get credit for the trees preserved, and so there is, because they're preserving many more trees than they're removing as a result of this proposed development, they're not required to add additional trees to the site over what the landscape plan already requires.
What is the pipeline?
Yeah.
I believe it's a high pressure gas pipeline, I believe. You can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it in these.
So is that something that can't go away?
It's a big boy. You're limited what you can do over top of it and within the easement. Very strict limitations.
And obviously, we're just figuring this out for tonight, but I'm just trying to see, going forward, a potential other person, they couldn't really mess with the pipeline then?
No, that pipeline is protected for good reason. It's we got to be careful with that.
That's going to stay green, whether it's this petitioner or another one?
Well, I mean, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So it's hard to see on this, but the general line of this parking district, I would say, is kind of in this general area. And so anything that happens in this area would require some form of rezoning of that parking designation. There's very limited use of that parking designation under the current zoning ordinance. The pipeline here in question is this location. You could get a drive through that pipeline, but you couldn't have any sort of structures or anything of substance in that pipeline. So in theory, it's pretty safe to argue that this area south and through the pipeline into the north is pretty well protected by the easement condition of the pipeline as well as the existing zoning.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Malalawi.
So just to clarify, did the zoning come first or the pipeline happen first? Because if it says parking and no development were to happen there, which came first?
The chicken or the egg? I don't know the answer to that.
So potentially in the future, as Mr. Beatner said, we will not see anything happen, no matter what other proposals come aside from this one. There will be no development in that area, correct?
Never say never. I mean, if a future application came in and a future, either this planning commission or another planning commission or future city council decide to rezone that P parking area, then yes, something could happen in that area. But in terms of what can happen on the pipeline, unless the pipeline the pipeline industry relaxes some of their easement requirements, so there would be no development within that pipeline area. But the pipeline location is not unusual. We have pipelines and easements going throughout the city, so that particular issue is not an unusual issue that we have in the city of Troy.
Got it.
Any more questions for Mr. Carlisle? Yes, Ms.
Well,
Perez.
since we're talking about that pipeline, is the easement then presumably that property, the parking lot to the east?
Yeah, you can park over it, you can have drive aisles over it, but that's what you're mostly limited to in a pipeline. I don't know off-site where exactly that pipeline easement goes.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Carlisle? Seeing none, then we will bring up the applicant to make the presentation and answer any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
while the applicant's coming up, I just want to clarify, because a lot of work went into this. I know some of the residents may be asking. There was a petition that was submitted on behalf of several residents from West Oak subdivision, and they were asking me via email if I was going to hand it out, and everyone has a copy of it. It was in the electronic agenda, and a hard copy has also been submitted. And also, we got a formal protest petition from Mr. Bruce Knight, who owns the office to the east. And by law, these aren't even really considered until this item potentially goes to City Council. But we did receive it, and I wanted to these are two petitions that we did receive, and I just wanted to let them know that the Planning Commission has copies.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Brian, are you going to switch that?
Yeah, one sec.
Okay.
Make sure you sign in on the sheet there, too. So. Thank you.
This is pretty small. Do you want the, why isn't it coming up? There we go.
Oh, is that going to be bigger if you do the PowerPoint or the PDF?
This is the PDF. Where's the zoom?
Just zoom it out.
A little plus symbol at the top there. On the second line.
Do you see it?
No. The plus on the top.
Yeah, see the number 1 up there?
Oh, right there.
To the left. There you go.
Thank you. It's not. We can do it. Just tell me to advance the slides, and we'll do it this way.
Okay. Okay, sure. So can you go up one slide, please?
Yeah, one sec. There.
All right. All right, a formal good evening. My name's Todd Gesund. I live at 686 Elderberry Court in Commerce. I am the Vice President and Director of Expansion at Jack's Car Wash. I'm also a car wash lifer. I grew up in the business, and I've been working in and around the car wash space since I was 9 years old. Just wanted to introduce to you the entire team we have here tonight. John Zimmerman, CEO of Jack's Car Wash. We've got our legal, John Gaber from WWRP. We have in the back there, Lyndon, raise your hand, Lyndon Visage, of COO of Cunningham Lymph, our design build team. And also in the back, Jim Butler, principal at PEA Group, our civil engineers on the project. So we've been kicking around the tires for a long time on this property, so glad to be finally standing here before you guys tonight. Just a brief history of Jack's Car Wash. I'd like to think at some point all of you guys have heard of Jack's Car Wash. Hopefully some of you are our customers already, and maybe you're customers at our Maple Road location in Troy. We've been a staple in Metro Detroit and Michigan. We owned and operated locally. We celebrated our 70th birthday this past summer. Foundation of our business has been and continues to be excellent customer service, and also providing, of course, a clean, shiny, and dry car. We currently have 29 locations, and we operate in 18 different cities in Michigan. What sets us apart? I talk about excellent customer service. We do something that very few in our industry do. We hand towel dry every car that exits our car wash. We've been doing this for 70 years. This makes us unique. Our greeters say hello to every customer as they enter the site, and our towel dry team says goodbye to them as they leave the site. It's part of the customer experience we offer at Jack's. We have beautiful buildings, state-of-the-art equipment, technology. We offer free vacuums and an indoor mat cleaning room, and we also have restrooms on site in case any of the customers need them. Community involvement. We're very involved, obviously, in every community we are in. We take a lot of pride in that. From our Jack's Gives Back charity weekend to school fundraisers and other organizations, there's no request that's ever denied. We help raise thousands of dollars every year in the communities in which we reside. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. I come in peace, so I've met many of you. As you are aware of in the agenda packet, back in March, I invited neighbors on Heartland Avenue out to Granite City for an informal meeting to discuss our potential development. We had great conversation. I explained our project and tried to address all their concerns. Very nice people with a lot of good questions and interest in our project. And I think they would tell you I was very stand-up and honest with all of them during our meeting. Now, not knowing they had already sent a letter into the city, I invited them once again on October 9th to meet me again, this time on site at the property, just because I really felt like we needed to get out to the site. I really wanted to show them the development and kind of what we were planning and some of those things. Now I know why nobody showed up at that meeting, because of that letter that was already sent in. So having read their letter, I understand they're not thrilled with the idea of a Jack's Car Wash on that piece. But I can definitely address their concerns and show real solutions. If you want to go to there's a slide, one more, please. One more, Brent? Thank you. So current zoning was just discussed is office. So if you look at the slide here, there's your office building, can be as many as 3 stories. And then just to clarify, that entire back piece, whether the pipeline is there or not, can all be parking. So they can pave over the pipeline, and so that whole piece can be parking. So it will not stay green if it should be an office building. Can you go to the next slide, Brent? So what I wanted to show you is that we're doing something very unique with this property. We're preserving 42% of the entire piece of property. That's over 57,000 square feet that will remain untouched and in its natural state, which is woodlands. This is what we love about this space. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of property. From the, we are 176 feet from the edge of our driveway to the nearest neighborhood property line in the back. And then the edge of our building, the furthest edge of our building closest to the neighborhood is 250 feet away. They won't even, and so preserving this 57,000 square feet of woodlands, they won't even know we're there. Can you go to the next slide? Okay. So we've been doing a lot of research on this. This is a view of what our property would look like from Big Beaver Road. As you can see, there's a dense buffer of mature trees and woodland. Now, if you could go to the next slide, this is what our property currently looks like if you're looking at it from the neighbor's point of view from their backyards. As you can see, there's nothing you can really see except for the trees and woodland. Now, if we go, and that's all because we're going to preserve that 57,000 square feet. Now, this is what the neighbors, this is the Balkan Community Center that you see in the background. So these are what the neighbors to the west of our property look out and see from their backyard. And if you go to the next slide, there's the office that you can see, the multi-storied office that the neighbors to the east of us can see from their backyard. And Brian, if you wouldn't mind going back to the first slide. And this is what they'll see if we build here. This will remain unchanged. Can you go back up to the picture of the car wash? Actually down, I'm sorry, down. Right there, okay, thank you. One of the other issues that I wanted to discuss that was in their letter, on a Jack's Car Wash diminishing property values, I say just the opposite. The new car washes of today aren't like the Breaking Bad car washes that you saw in the Breaking Bad of old. We're not an industrial operation at all, like what was mentioned in the resident's letter. We're building something beautiful here, and one could argue that this might be one of the most beautiful buildings once built in this stretch of the Big Beaver corridor. This same design we just got approved to build in Northville. It was mentioned we don't also fit the image of the Big Beaver corridor. I disagree with that. I live in Commerce. There's absolutely next to nothing to do in Commerce. So my wife and I, we often come out to Troy. When we think of Troy, we think of high-end restaurants, retail, Somerset. I think Jack's fits in quite well in Troy, as with our reputation, we've always been considered the Kashmir of car washes. So I think we fit quite well here. Brian, could you go back down, please? Or up, I'm sorry. So talking to a couple real estate friends of mine and asking them, you can go back to the views, there you go. Asking my real estate friends, if everything being equal, and the only difference is the view from the backyard, the back property of a house, what could you market or sell better? Could you market something and sell it better if it has buildings that you're looking out of the back view of the house? Or could you market it and sell it better if you're looking at a woodland area? Well, of course, it's the woodland area. And again, we're trying to preserve 57,000 square feet, 42% of the property, to remain woodland area. And as part of our rezoning, and they explain a little bit of that, and we'll have to come back for some of that because we didn't designate that. This area there would be a condition on this area that it would never ever be built on, and that would be as part of our approvals. Can we go to the site plan, which is, okay. Now let's talk about traffic. I want to reference the site plan. This is a big, beautiful site, and we have phenomenal stacking space. We can stack 24 cars before the pay stations, and we can stack an additional 11 after the pay stations before they enter the tunnel. That's 35 total stacking spaces. Now, the majority of our customers will come from a 3-mile radius around our site. Car wash is not a destination. We believe that our customers don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to get a car wash today. Instead, we think our customers wake up and they say, I'm going shopping today. I'm going to go to Somerset. I might have lunch at Seasons 52. My kid's got a game at the Troy Sports Center. And while I'm driving there and I'm on my way, I'm going to stop at my favorite car wash and clean my car. 80% of our business is membership-based. Our members wash an average of 3.8 times per month. That's it. That's kind of a shocking number when you have an unlimited membership, but 3.8 times per month. Our average day is 475 cars. That's 40 cars an hour. We have 72 rain days a year where we wash little or next to nothing. Sure, we definitely have those 9 or 10 days. You guys have probably all been at a car wash when we're jammed up and really busy and the sun's out and there's salt on the road. Unfortunately, those days are far and few between for us. We're not Chick-fil-A. We're not lined up every minute, every hour, all day long, every day. Unfortunately, that's not a reality, unless, of course, you're Chick-fil-A. There's already 30,000 vehicles a day that drive down Big Beaver. If we can capture just 1.5% of those vehicles, a measly 1.5%, our location would be a success. We're not adding to the traffic on Big Beaver. We're merely hoping we can capture a little bit of the traffic that's already cruising by. Can you go to we have a noise study there. John, will you talk a little bit on the noise, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Todd. So obviously, as a company that is building car washes and going for entitlement, we do a lot of noise work. And one of the things, before I get into what this study shows, is we do something a little bit different on this site, or all of our new sites. We put our vacuums, the producer, inside the building, okay? So that big piece that makes all the noise, if you've been to a Jack's, you've probably seen them outside. We decided years ago, just start moving the new ones inside. So our producers are inside. So with that, the other area that we do differently now is we take our what's called our dry and shines, and we move those at the exit of the wash. What that does is it blocks the blowers as you're leaving the car wash, and it basically puts you in a situation where the noise from the blowers as you're exiting are drowned out by the dry and shine equipment that's blocking it. So we have extremely quiet car washes. All of our new builds follow this philosophy. So when you look at our standard vacuum equipment, the piece that's actually going to be inside is our loudest piece, and it's 75 decibels. Our vacuum at the customer station is 64 decibels, and those numbers tells you the level of decibels that you can hear based upon the difference. So, right, if you were 40 feet away, you'd be at 41 decibels, okay? The equipment at the car wash exit is 87 decibels. Now, that piece of equipment is facing Big Beaver. It's not even going anywhere close to where the neighbors are. And this is without the dry and shines blocking them. And it's at 500 feet away, it's 42 decibels. So the point of what we find all the time when we do these traffic studies, city traffic is 70 decibels. A library is 40, and a quiet conversation is 60. No one will know we're there. We've seen this time and time again. We've never had a noise complaint, literally. We've had a lot of concern when we go in front of cities for noise complaints, but when we are open with 30 locations, we've never had a noise complaint. People don't know we're there. Can we go to the next slide? This is one of the pieces that, you know, we always like to hit on when we go into a community. It's our hours of operation. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? We have very friendly neighborhood hours. As Todd mentioned, our averages are 72 days a year. We're not even open, unfortunately. And we don't bring a lot of people on site, right? Because of the way our business model is, we have on average 4 to 6 employees at a time. So we're very lightly staffed for what we're bringing to this facility.
So wanted to see if anybody, well, before we get into some of the, we're going to call John Gaber up, and before we get into a lot of the legal jargon, does anybody have any questions for some of the things that we just discussed?
Any questions from the commission for the applicants? I had one. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Fox.
Well, I have a question. I don't know if this is going to come up later, so let me know if it is going to come up later. From my understanding from the presentation that the city gave is that you guys are currently not compliant with the screening requirements for the neighboring office parcels, and I was curious why you guys left those open.
You know what, for that, can I call up John Gaber for a minute to answer that?
Go ahead.
John, you want to come up? Or, I'm sorry, Jim Butler. Whoa, Jim Butler, sorry. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I don't know if I jumped ahead in your presentation or whatever.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Good evening. Jim Butler with PEA Group. Address is 1849 Pond Run, Auburn Hills, Michigan, 48326, sorry. Related to the buffering on the east and the west, we certainly have to add buffering to be compliant with the ordinance requirements. So there is additional screening we're going to need to put along the east and the west property lines.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Tagle.
Could you talk a little bit about the circulation on site?
Yeah, circulation. Obviously, having coming in on the Westerly Drive, the intent is obviously to have them go through the pay station, go through the car wash, and then go through the drying or go through the vacuum area. We do have that cross connection because we have a requirement for loading, unloading for this. So that was an area where we needed to put the loading, unloading, and for circulation.
How many of the installations you have in Michigan are putting the drying or the vacuuming stations after the car wash?
You know what? All new builds, if you have the site plan to be able to, if you have the property to be able to do it, is the way to do it, because that way it's your customers that are using the vacuums. We have so many sites, right? We have 29 sites, and so many of the sites are, majority of the sites, the vacuums, they're old buildings. Majority of the vacuums are before you enter the wash. So we have a lot of people that pull into those vacuum spaces that aren't our customers, and they take up those vacuum spaces, and they're not available for our customers. So this is absolutely the new way of doing things, where the vacuums, it makes a lot of sense. And those people, when just somebody pulls in just to vacuum and leave, they don't care about the car wash. They dump their garbage on the ground. They really don't care. So this is really the new way of doing things, and you capture, it's one of the amenities of the car wash, of paying the $10 for a car wash or having a membership, is to be able to use the vacuums.
Is this your first installation in this with this
No, this is not. We have several locations. We have a lot. We just opened a location in Oak Park a month ago on Greenfield and 11 Mile. That is, the design is a lot different because we have a new design now, but the layout of the pay stations and the flow is very much the same, where you can only get to the vacuums through the car wash.
just seems like a cumbersome relationship, not necessarily the wash versus the vacuum. But once you come out of the vacuum, now you've got to circle around.
Well, you actually don't have to, because if you don't want to use the vacuums, if you can see, you can exit, you can just go straight on the bottom there and you can exit right out. So you don't have to use the vacuums. You can get right out on Big Beaver very quickly if you don't want to use the vacuums.
And you're entering in the Westerly Drive, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And so you drive from the Westerly Drive to the east property, up the east, come back down.
Enter here.
Okay.
Easterly.
Here, so I can show you here. I got a little light. So you come in here, we go through the pay stations, come around here, you go through the wash, now out. Now you're in the exit area. We're towel drying you right in this area here. Now you have the option. You can either exit onto Big Beaver right here, or if you want to clean your car further, use the indoor mat room. You go through the vacuum area, stop in one of the vacuums, then you circle this way and come out here. It's actually the absolute perfect layout. Like we couldn't ask for a better layout of a site. So through the car wash, you can not use the vacuums. You come out, exit car wash here, out, we towel dry you right here, come out, right out onto Big Beaver. Or go in, use the vacuums, you're in this area, out and around this way. Here's our employee parking, all this over here, and right out on Big Beaver here.
Go ahead, Mr. Tagle.
Can I have-
Go ahead, keep going.
Go, John.
One last question. The vacuums that are on the westbound or the westerly side, how are those served by the unit? Is it an underground system?
It's underground. So the actual, everything that runs the vacuum is inside the building, as
But
John
are we getting that draw from that
Getting that
piece
draw
of equipment
from-
to the hose itself?
That's right. It's just
underground.
it's plumbing that's underground, and it's just feeding that. And any noise from it, there's no noise out at the vacuums. All the noise is inside the building.
Mr. Fox?
I guess one last question about circulation, and not that this is horribly crucial. It looks like I can just go in from the east and then just go to the vacuum.
Theoretically, what you're
Straight,
saying.
left, right.
Theoretically, you are correct.
Okay.
Theoretically, you could go in.
Sure.
Yes, we'd have signage there saying customers only, but you are right.
Mr. Mullally?
Thank you, Chairman. So you know our master plan, and you know the designated zone that we have, which is titled as the Smart Zone. I'm going to read this one sentence here to kind of get an understanding of how you feel your Jack's Car Wash is a better fit, as opposed to what we have designated in the master plan as what we would like to see as Troy residents here. So it says, the study calls this location a paragon of innovation and prescribes a combination of signature light industrial, research and development, and office uses. Now, as you are very well aware, this is our only Smart Zone designated area. How do you see your car wash fit into this Smart Zone?
So we're that's part of John's presentation.
If you don't mind, can he get to that when he comes up?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before the legal?
You know, one of the things while we're here, and Jim, you're here, would you talk about this? This is access that's coming from the office from the other side?
Yeah, because if you look at the aerial that's there, there's an existing cross-access that was set up between this parcel and the adjacent parcel. We are just making that connection, just to be consistent with what was the intent of that. So that's why that's there.
Okay.
And if you look on the lower left-hand side, you'll see a dashed out area where the same situation. We're willing to delegate an area for cross-access.
That was going to be my question. So there's an existing cross-access agreement?
Yes, that is an
with
existing
both?
cross-access.
Okay, great. Any other questions before we bring up the applicant's lawyer? Mr. Tagle?
Just by the circulation arrows on there, if a car was coming from that westerly property, they really would have to go out onto Big Beaver. They will not be able to get into your car wash. You'd have to go out on Big Beaver, go around the median, and come back.
Correct.
So really, that cross-access
Is not
easement
necessary.
could be beneficial for people that are on your property wanting to get to the westerly property. But as far as,
Potentially, yes.
well, I mean, yeah, it's like we're facing a one-way if we're heading east, coming through the cross. Yeah, okay.
Any other questions before we have the attorney come up? Come on up and introduce yourself. Make sure everyone's signed in on the sheet.
Thank you. I was wondering, Brent, could you go back to the rendering, please?
Okay. Yeah, we had added, one of the things that, when I met with the residents originally at Granite City, and, I was explaining the project, and they were asking about fencing and screening. So we did add, after our submittal, if you see on this rendering, there is a vinyl screening wall that we added at the back end of the property just to further enhance protection and screen from the neighbors. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, guys. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is John Gaber. I'm the attorney for the applicant. 380 North Old Woodward, Birmingham is my address. And I just want to, essentially, they've kind of covered the more interesting parts of the presentation. The site, the development, the layout, the use and such. What I'm going to do is cover some of the points that Mr. Carlisle mentioned about, the criteria in the zoning ordinance relative to conditional rezoning, relative to special land use, because that's important to take what they've shown you so far and kind of connect the dots and answer, some of the questions that have been raised. So if I could do that, I think, Brent, you've got to advance it, please.
Is that the battery dead on that?
Well, let's see. Does this work?
No.
Yeah. Where would you like me to go, John?
Right there is fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Excuse me, as Mr. Carlisle mentioned, we have 3 conditions that we're voluntarily offering to subject this property to. One, relative to use, that it'll be an automatic car wash use only. Number 2, that it's only going to be developed in accordance with the site plan. So basically the layout, when the site plans are approved by this body, that's it. That's all that can be developed there. And number 3, which is probably most important to the neighbors, is the preservation, as Mr. Gasson showed, as Todd showed, about that rear area, that 57,000 square feet. And we're going to preserve that in perpetuity if it comes to putting some type of a conservation easement over it, some other type of restriction. It's going to be part of the approval of the conditional rezoning as a condition. And then also, we would be okay having it a condition to the special land use as well. So the point is to show that that will not be changed in the future, that will be preserved, because as Todd showed, if you have an office development, you could use that for parking back there. You could take those trees down and use it for parking and have a cross connection over the pipeline. Next, please. So the question about, or one of the criteria is that the proposed development and use is not in material conflict with the city's master plan. That's the language that's in the ordinance, and that's one of the questions that was just raised. Essentially, with this property having the smart zone designation, which basically is this area where the star is, but also on the south side, primarily on the south side of Big Beaver Road. Properties located, just to the east and just to the west of this particular area are designated differently. They're designated on the east side, the red, as the Big Beaver Road designation, and the public, quasi-public, which is the light blue to the west. The car wash, we believe, is supported in the smart zone by virtue of the underlying zoning district required to support many of the smart zone uses, as Mr. Carlisle said. Next. Most of the smart zone area, the master plan, is zone IB. If you look at that drawing, all of the gray south of Big Beaver is zoned IB, and not coincidentally, that basically lines up with where the majority of the smart zone is. So IB supports many of the uses described in the smart zone designation of the master plan. IB zoning allows vehicle washes as a permissible but a special land use. So by being a permissible use in the IB zoning district that facilitates most of the existing and the future land uses within the SMART zone, we believe the proposed use is consistent with the city's master plan in that regard. Next. In addition to that, there are some standards that are set forth in the SMART zone designation. One deals with design standards, and we believe that we meet many of those. We offer generous landscaping, no front yard parking, effective stormwater management, and quality building materials. A further element in the SMART zone designation is with regard to building design elements, and we believe we comply with those too. The exterior elevation incorporates different design elements at various heights, one of the suggestions. We have durable maintenance-free materials and a neutral color scheme, and the public entrance to the building has glazing with signage. Next. Additionally, the property is designated as SMART zone, but is surrounded by properties designated by Big Beaver Road and public or quasi-public designations. So if you look at the Big Beaver Road designation next door, it in part highlights mixed uses to service residential residents in the community. Such objective is evidenced by the restaurants and retail shopping center, the hockey rink, the San Marino Club, all to the east of the property. And then just like the Big Beaver designation use, the car wash will service nearby residents, as well as vehicles traveling Big Beaver Road. Next. We believe that the rezoning and the use that we're proposing is compatible with the adjacent zoning districts as well. Rezoning to the IB district would be compatible with the adjacent zoning districts when we consider the restricted use. As you recall by the conditions, the restricted use is just the automatic car wash. So we're not looking at all potential IB uses here as potential uses like you would in a straight rezoning. What we're looking at here is just the automatic car wash use. So we believe it's consistent with the adjacent zoning districts and uses. Next. If you look at IB to the south, what we're trying to do is to extend the IB district, similar to what the city did with the SMART Zone master plan designation, just extending it to that area north of Big Beaver Road. If you look at the office next to us, the rezoning is restricted to a car wash use that's a commercial zoning classification, which is similar in many ways to office zoning, as office uses are often present in business and commercial zones. So there's a lot of similarities and overlap. And if you look at the residential property to the north, that zoning district, you have, if you look elsewhere in the city, there are several properties that are zoned general business that border single-family residentially zoned properties. And as car washes are permitted as a special use in those GB-type districts as well, they're similar to other commercial businesses with GB zoning that border residential. So therefore, we believe for these reasons it is compatible with these different zoning districts that are adjacent to the property. Next. We also believe that our use is compatible with adjacent uses. It's a service business providing for the needs of consumers both in the area and those traveling Big Beaver. We believe a car wash will not adversely affect our neighbors, being the Balkan American Community Center to the west, or the offices, the San Marino Club to the east of the property. These uses represent business and community uses which will not be negatively impacted by the car wash. And our car wash will likely service a lot of occupants of those adjacent uses. Next. The proposed three conditions make the car wash use compatible, we believe, with the single-family uses to the north. The conditions lock in the use as a car wash, they lock in the site plan and the development, and as mentioned, they preserve the substantial natural buffer, protecting those adjacent residential homes. Next. And we also believe the rezoning request will not be detrimental to the properties. It'll benefit those in the area We have the 3 conditions that we're offering for protection. As Todd mentioned, we have the additional screening at the rear of the site, the rear of the car wash, before we get to the protected area, with evergreen trees that we're adding, and then that fence that he mentioned that'll be installed to protect against headlight infiltration that we don't believe is going to go all the way back to the neighbors because of the distances. It's about 170 feet at the minimal point to those neighbors, but we believe that these protections are necessary and will definitely help the situation to ensure that there's no detrimental impact. So these are basically why we believe that the conditional rezoning conditions and standards in the zoning ordinance are met with this particular development, both the use and the layout. Now I'd like to turn, next please, to the special use standards. And this is just a representative image. This is not what this site will look like, but we just thought it would give a little bit of color to the presentation. Next. So if you look at the standards, as Mr. Carlisle mentioned, for special land use, one, the use should be compatible with adjacent uses, and I've discussed that already, so I'm not going to repeat why we believe we meet that criteria. Secondly, there should be some compatibility with the master plan, and I've already gone over that as well, but we believe that, we are compliant and not inconsistent with the objectives of the master plan. Next. The traffic impact should be minimized with the site design. That's another criteria. And we believe that our site plan provides for efficient and safe traffic on site. We've got one-way circulation, the separate entrance and exit drives. We've got the site's designed to maximize vehicle circulation and minimize conflicts with the one-ways. The vacuums are located on a one-way drive, and the parking is located on a one-way drive too. So we try to minimize any potential for conflicts, accidents, anything like that to happen. Next. Also along these lines, Big Beaver Road is a major arterial which is designed to accommodate the traffic generated by businesses in the area, including ours. With the infill development that's taken place on Big Beaver Road, the city has accommodated and can still accommodate a substantial amount of development. And most importantly, as Todd mentioned, the majority of the traffic that's generated by our site is pass-by traffic. It's not destination traffic. It's traffic that's already traveling that corridor that decides to utilize our services. Next. Impact on public services is another criteria that you're asked to look at. We border Big Beaver Road from an access standpoint. We've talked about that. The site is serviced by all public utilities from Big Beaver. Stormwater will be maintained with an underground detention system flowing to the Big Beaver storm drain system. And then we do practice environmentally friendly wastewater discharge practices. We filter the water through a sedimentation tank before discharging it into the system. And much of that water is recycled for use in the car wash. Next. Compliance with the zoning ordinance standard, as was mentioned, we can comply with the IB dimensional standards in the ordinance. Next. Impact on the overall environment. We think the preservation of the rear of the site is probably the biggest impact that we're going to be able to provide in perpetuity to protect the adjacent property owners, the neighbors to the north. And then if you have an office development, office zoning doesn't provide for that. You could have a parking lot 30 feet from that north property line. You'd probably have a wall between the neighbors and that parking lot. And then you'd have a lot of impervious surface if you had up to a 3-story office building there. So for these reasons, we think our development with protecting that rear area is more environmentally friendly to the city. Next. The special use approval requirements, there are specific requirements that apply to automatic car washes. The first is minimum lot size. We meet that. The second is that all activities should be carried on with the building and vacuums located a certain distance from residential. We meet those requirements. Third, the automatic car wash shall have a mechanical dryer operation. We provide for that. And fourth, we need to provide a demonstrated means at the exit ramp to prevent pooling of water or freezing. Our exit ramp has a heating system located in the concrete drive, together with the proper grading that'll pitch the pavement to stop water from pooling and freezing. Next. There are other factors to be considered. We've gone over most of these before. We minimize noise, free vacuums. The vacuum mechanical equipment is inside the building to minimize noise, and we use green cleaning products as some examples. Next. The vehicular circulation and parking, we've talked about that before. Next. Outdoor activity. Well, we have the 3 automatic pay stations outdoors on the east side of the site. We have the free vacuums, and then we have the hand towel drying, which is a hallmark of our washes and what customers expect. Next. And then the hours of operation, John went through those, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we don't infringe upon people's sleeping time or any of those hours where people are home and expect there to be little activity in the evening. Another requirement or criteria, I should say, is a reduction of traffic, noise, vibrations, smoke, fumes, odors, dust, glare, and light. We believe that we provide this. We're not aware of any noise, vibration, smoke, fumes, or odors that will be generated. With regard to dust, we have our vacuum mechanical equipment inside to minimize any dust. Next. And with regard to lights, the building is approximately 250 feet from the north property line. The vehicle drives are 178 feet. We're preserving those existing trees and vegetation. We're planting more evergreen trees on the north side of our site, and we're putting a fence there. So we believe that the site lighting will be minimized, and the lighting, the pole lighting in our site will be directed toward the building, away from the residential neighbors. Next. So that's basically how I believe that we meet the special land use criteria in your ordinance, of which there are several. It's very thorough, but I believe we can meet those, and I believe we meet the conditional rezoning requirements as well, for all the reasons discussed. So if we can answer any questions, we're certainly here to do that.
Any questions from the commission? Mr. Fox?
Yes, sir.
So I just want to clarify. So the general argument or perception that you guys have as to why this is consistent with the master plan, getting back to Ms. Mulally-Holly's question,
yep.
Is that because the majority of the district is IB, and IB allows car washes as a special use, thus it is consistent? Like, it's kind of the logic.
Yeah, right. The IBU supports what the smart zone allows in your master plan. They're very consistent, and the footprint is very similar. So we think because for those reasons, and it was mentioned earlier, there are other uses that are not necessarily high-tech uses that are allowed or provided for in the smart zone as well, and in the IB district as well. And we believe the car wash is one of them. But we also believe that we meet the smart zone requirements in part because of the design, the architectural features, the materials, and the other elements of the building. They're what I believe the zoning ordinance is looking for in the smart zone area. So for all those reasons, we believe that we're compatible and materially consistent with the smart zone.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Parakis?
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a really thorough presentation. I did have a question about the landscaping to the north, because in our presentation, in our packet, it says that there is sufficient existing vegetation throughout the rear portion of the lot. However, most trees are deciduous, thus providing little screening during winter months. And the truth is the pictures that showed that great screening showed, the leaves full on the trees. Right. It would have been helpful to see a winter picture. And then I noticed that you are putting 6 new evergreens, but the requirement is actually, I think it's 1 narrow evergreen tree every 5 feet or 1 large evergreen tree every 10 feet. So I don't know that the 6 would meet that requirement if you were really going to put an evergreen wall, which is really what's required.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I saw that in the zoning ordinance. I think that is required, but I think one of the options, and maybe these gentlemen can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can put some type of a wall or a fence in lieu of that in this type of situation. And we're proposing those trees because, I mean, that's the area where we can fit evergreen trees. So I don't recall if it's 6 or not. Wonder, Brent, could you put the rendering back up, please? But then we have the wall as well. Jim, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, there are standards obviously within your ordinance. There's a significant buffer that we have. If there's supplemental trees that need to be added to enhance that, we're certainly willing to do that.
Okay. And then can you speak about that wall when you say a vinyl wall? What does that look like?
It's a fence, 6-foot-high fence. It's a vinyl fence.
It's opaque.
It's opaque, so it's 100% you cannot see through it. Unlike like a board-on-board stockade fence, it's completely, has no ability to the light to come through it whatsoever.
Okay. And is that permitted?
So the ordinance does permit the planning commission to consider alternatives such as a wall or fence in lieu or in addition to landscaping requirements. That being said, unless I missed it, Mr. Butler, I didn't see a fence on any sort of site plan and or landscape plan, so I can't tell you the location of the proposed fence, as well as I don't think there was a cut sheet showing what the fence would look like. So again, those are details that weren't on the plan that I couldn't verify in terms of what the location is.
Yeah, Mr. Carlo, you are correct. It was based on the comments we did receive, kind of showing that we could do something in addition to. It is not on our plan currently. Okay. You're correct.
And then just...
So just, if this does proceed, we would review that addition to the site plan and make a comment with regards or not if it meets ordinance requirements and if the planning commission has the authority to approve a fence in lieu of landscaping. But at this point, until we see it, we can't make that commitment.
Thank you. And then just a couple of other comments, I guess. The hours of operation, while they are friendly, maybe, they're longer than they would be if it was an office. So that to me is how it's a little bit different. And then also the lights, to me, the car wash in the evening with the lights will be lit up in a different way than an office would be. So to me, I make those distinctions in terms of the zoning being different and being compatible. And I mean, it was just a comment, really.
Okay. Mr. Biegner.
My question is for the attorney. You mentioned that in the smart zone that there were some other businesses that are different that would fit in that have fit in the smart zone. I was curious if you have examples.
I can look those up, but I don't have them in my presentation. I just know that in the smart zone, I think maybe Mr. Carlisle can speak to this. I think there are other types. There's a variety of uses that are permitted, just like there's a variety of uses that are permitted in the IB zoning district. I'm not saying that they're the same, but there's quite a bit of overlap between the two.
Obviously, we're in a fact-finding tonight. My recommendation to you is if you have examples that might help your case of what has occurred in the smart zone, and then maybe your suggestion of things that could be. I think we'd listen to that, but
yes,
we're also going to listen from both sides.
Okay.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Fox.
Well, so this may kind of be directed at Mr. Carlisle and Mr. Sabanon. So in reference to the lack of screening on the east and west sides of the property, they're currently non-compliant. So hypothetically, if they went back, would it be similar with the fence where they kind of have to adjust the plan like they are with the vinyl fence and they'd have to come back with the proper amount of screening?
It's an ordinance requirement, so they're gonna have to put the required screening in.
Good.
Really, regardless of the action the planning commission takes, it's an ordinance requirement that they have to do. So that will be, I assume that will be noted and addressed and put on a future site plan or landscape plan that moves forward.
Yes.
And then just one follow-up. In their presentation, the applicant referenced a sound study. I know that we've had traffic studies, and we have our own traffic consultant that will review those types of, have we reviewed this sound study? Like, do we have the mechanisms to do that independently on our end?
Did the city receive the sound study?
No, I think that was our sound study. We didn't do one on this property. We can certainly do that.
Yeah, I think what John was referring to was we've done a sound study, internally to speak to, different facilities, not this one specifically, but how much noise our facilities generate. And
so it's not something specific to this site, it's just a more general conceptual, these are these levels?
With our developments, with our car washes, yes.
All right, thank you for the clarification. That's why I was asking, so thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question.
Go ahead, Ms. Malahati.
Do you have any project that you have recently done that is kind of a comparison to what you are proposing here in terms of size, in terms of scale, in terms of the number of vacuums, number of cars that will be served? Is there one that you can talk to us about or show us some?
Well, we just completed a project in Oak Park. It's actually bigger than this project. We literally just completed a project, but that one is a 185-foot tunnel. This is a 155-foot tunnel. That was given rights for 27 vacuums in that particular project, where this one's going to be smaller than that. So it is similar in layout to this, but it's a bigger project than this.
Okay. And connected to that, not exactly fully connected to that, but in Mr. Carlisle's presentation, he pointed out that one part about traffic movement, wherein if I were to come in to get my car vacuumed, there is no way I could get back into the lane to go for a car wash. That still holds true, correct? I have to exit onto Big Beaver, make a U-turn, come back, and enter the car wash lane again.
If you wanted the vacuum first, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, many people do it that way. Not all, but many people, or some do.
What we find is that we have a ton of car washes in Wisconsin that follow this formula, right? And what customers do is they all go through the car wash and then they vacuum afterwards. It's just the way the traffic moves in a site that's laid out like this.
Right,
So,
that is where
but you're right. If you wanted to come onto the property, go use the vacuums, and then go through the car wash, you would have to exit the site and re-enter.
I'm looking at a potential scenario where, let's say, I want to go get both of it done, but I'm seeing that there are a lot of cars ahead of me. They've all come for a nice car wash, and I am now debating whether I'm going to use the vacuum first as opposed to the car wash, and so I end up going there. But then I quickly realize, oops, I can't get back into the lane. I got to come all the way out and do this. Am I going to go for a car wash today, or am I just going to exit here and then think about car washing some other day or later in the day, whatever?
No, I totally understand what you're saying is, and we discourage people from vacuuming first, and it would be the training of our customers that they would need to go through the wash, and that it is part of the finish of the wash is to go through the vacuums if you so choose. It would just be a training thing. I totally understand what you're saying, and yes, if you went to the vacuums first, but we have signage, things like that discourage that from happening, and that you do have to go through the wash first.
I think in your example, what's more likely to happen is exactly as you described, but they're not going to go through the car wash. They would come on the property, they would use the vacuum, and then they would exit and not come back.
Got it. You gave us the Wisconsin example. I'm just curious. This is not apples to apples comparison by any means, and I'm not doing that. But I just want to know, when you talk about your Wisconsin example, which is pretty similar to this project, if not exactly the same, what are we looking at in terms of the traffic movement on the main street that feeds into your car wash?
I would definitely say that traffic moves faster here than in Wisconsin.
And the volume too? Because here it's 33,000.
Here it's 33,000, and most Wisconsin streets are probably closer to 25,000 in the Milwaukee metro market where we are. So I would say similar, but the traffic movement on Big Beaver where this is located would be, but it would certainly be consistent to most of our sites here that are not as thoroughly laid out as this, not as large as this. So I would say this would, if you looked at a traditional Jack's, let's just say you were talking it in Southfield on Telegraph Road, right? That is much heavier traffic. This is a much better layout designed for both the consumers, us as operators. This would flow way better than what we have at any of our locations now.
For sure. We have 3 sites on Woodward Avenue, very similar to Big Beaver, 3 smaller sites with not as much stacking. We have the 1 site on 12 and Telegraph. So very similar. I mean, this is, again, as we mentioned, like it flows really well with the amount of traffic.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I'd like to get to the public hearing so that those who are here can talk to the commission, give their input. So I'll open the public hearing and let people know there's a 3-minute time limit, and Mr. Savinant has control of the little lights here, and I think, 30 seconds, the yellow light turns on? Is that correct, Mr. Savinant?
30 seconds or a minute, I can't remember.
All right. And so, first gentleman, go ahead.
Hey, good. My name is Murthy Vivek, and I live in 1482 Heartland Drive, and I've already put my information there. And I want to thank you all first because you've already asked the questions, some of my concerns. That's what I'm going to be reading. Most of you, the questions you asked them were the similar concerns. Thank you for already thinking of some of the concerns that we might be having. I'm going to read some of the points that I have written. Now, I just want to say, I oppose this rezone request. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. I'm not happy that a car wash is going to come on my backyard. 1482 Heartland, that's where I live. One of the pictures that he showed is it's my house. So this car wash is really behind my house, okay, or adjacent to my house. I don't think it meets the vision of a modern Troy city, okay? The master plan calls for a smart zone development, and as you called it, a paragon of innovation. I'm reading just what she said, right? The smart zone recognizes the regionally prominent location for technologically advanced companies for the Big Beaver corridor. Like she said, I don't believe that the car wash falls in that vision, okay, for a smart zone. And I've lived in this address for past 17 years. I've actively supported City of Troy in all their millage requests. I've actively canvassed my neighbors and friends to vote for city needs. I'm worried that if this proposal is approved, then it would negatively affect my property value as well as my neighbors. When we bought this house, one of the motivating factors was in the City of Troy, I can expect my value of my house appreciate. Okay, and I knew if at all something happens to that lot, it might be a office building. I didn't expect an industrial operation. Okay, I'm worried about privacy, noise pollution, safety, lighting, car fumes. I'm worried that if this proposal is approved, then the adjacent office buildings could be converted to industrial business in the near future. What prevents, once this is approved, other businesses can come and try to convert the current office buildings into an IB type of a thing. The proposal talks about leaving the existing trees to protect the neighborhood. Like you said, that during the winter months, these trees are barren and provide very little screening for noise, lighting, car fumes. So noise is a big concern for us. Okay, the proposed car wash plan calls for 22 self-serve vacuum spaces. I'm worried that we can't enjoy your backyard with all these noises. And like you said, these are long hours, morning 7 to evening 8 o'clock on a weekend. You know, that's a long time for us to be able to spend some time on my backyard. I'm positive we'll be hearing those noises. We have a lot of young kids in our neighborhood who play in our backyard and are concerned about their safety.
Okay.
Is my time up?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Planning Commission. Geeta Madurkar, I live in 1494. I'm just adjacent to Murthy Vivek, so right north to the lot where Jack's Car Wash is being proposed. Again, not in favor of rezoning my backyard to this car wash. I own 3 houses in Troy. I have multiple small businesses, all headquartered in Troy. Living in Troy for more than 20 years, vested interest here. schooling of all my kids have been here, and this is a city where we definitely plan to live forever. I have a mom living with me, a cancer survivor, and has moved on. And I'm really concerned with what this will add to the overall health and the environment. Noise pollution, I'm not 100% buying into all the noise studies that they've done. I think that is a concern definitely for all residents we have here. Definitely concerned about her compromised immune system and what she's going to face with all this new development. School security is very concerning. We have 2 Baker Middle School and the East IA High School with school buses and all that happening. I don't think this is a welcoming thing where we live around because of the security for our school children. And all our children are crossing most of the times through those backyards, and they are moving and passing. So we are talking unwanted traffic and patrols and all that. So overall, I feel city revenue is at stake. $1 million house is what I'm looking forward to, and I think we will realize that in the coming years. I don't think anybody will want to pay $1 million to a house that's back to a car wash. A promise that was made by the city to us when we moved here was we will be taken care of, and I humbly request the city to take care of that promise and continue to deliver that. Thank you very much.
I have 3 minutes to discuss things. Something's going to cost me $2 million. It works out well. Don't start yet.
He'll wait for you, though. And you will be able to come back at the next meeting.
I will be able to. So I can do half now and half later. All right,
so
good.
you get 6 minutes.
All right, okay. First of all, I'm going to start off, and I want John to represent me because we'd like to put a slaughterhouse there, and he can justify it by saying the people in the smart zone eat meat. That's kind of the logic that we just went through. But anyway, you guys have already read what I sent in, so I'm not going to go through that stuff. I'd like to go back to the 3 legal aspects of this thing. The first one is, does it comply with the master plan? Is it part of the smart zone? In our office, we write programs to interact economics with the medical industry, so we're doing a lot about hospital work. So we are part of the smart zone. I've got a guy in the office, or in my office building, who is developing a cure for a disease that only 20,000 people, only 20,000 people in the United States have, or the country, world, and he's talking to people throughout the whole world. That's a smart zone. A car wash is not a smart zone. When I was 14, I worked in a gas station. I washed cars. I wasn't smart. And I worked alongside of a guy named Ace, whose claim to fame was became a garbage man. He wasn't smart. So this is not a smart zone. It's the farthest stretch in the imagination calling this part of a smart zone. Number 2, the conditions, the applications do not reasonably protect the adjacent property. This does not protect my property. Here is, I had no idea you had this here. But anyway, here's my property. And here's what they've got here. And this is so when it fills up here, and somebody I'm through waiting, they exit through my driveway, which was theoretically for use for across stuff so that you wouldn't have to go on the road between the office buildings. That's not was the intention of that exit. So he's going to have people coming in here and then exiting down here, and I got people parking here, and they're going to come to a dentist. The children are going to be crossing here with cars exiting here. Then, if they get busy, if they get really busy, they'll jam up and they'll stop there. And when they stop there, here's their entrance, here's my exit. 2 cars later, they're blocking my entrance. They're blocking my entrance. And you got, by the way, when the light changes down the end of the road, these cars are coming down 55 miles an hour. So you're going to have these guys going 55 miles an hour, car stop, going over here and trying to get between the 2 cars. You guys are going to be a defendant. and I won't be because I'm objecting to this. But it's a really, really bad plan. Finally, the conditional rezoning would be incompatible with the surrounding zoning. All right, here we go. 6 miles, Troy to Troy. There's not one piece of property zoned there. There is. It's right over here in Dequindre Road at the end of Big Beaver. Guys, I mean, come on. You know, and I used to collect little matchboxes because I spelled out Jack Car Wash. You got a free car wash when I was 14 or 15. So anyway.
Thank you for your time.
Please. Okay.
We'll see you next meeting.
Oh, yeah, I'll get the second half done for you.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for this opportunity for offering to listen to all the residents here. I'm going to make my spiel a little short. I'm one of the residents just living north of the proposed car wash on Heartland Drive. So 2 points I would like to make. I know there's been a lot of studies that I saw in terms of the noise and so on. Having lived in the Troy for 25 plus years and in the neighborhood for almost 20 years, living next to Big Beaver itself is an ordeal. And the whole neighborhood is like a 2-story building, if any of you are familiar with that. So most of the time we spend working as well as sleeping, relaxing, is upstairs. And no amount of barrier, any kind of like a trees or fence or anything, is going to prevent the noise from going upstairs. It directly hits us. Because being a light sleeper, I know that. I'm living through it. And it's not fun. And whatever the decibel studies that have been made, even taking at face value, you have to realize it adds up. It's a constant noise. It's noise from here. Now you're adding, even if it's a lower noise, you're adding more noise to what already exists. Second thing, the traffic that is going to, the jam, the slowness that it's going to cause on the Big Beaver, it's going to be not good at all. Right now, the main exit from our neighborhood to Big Beaver is Daly Street. And if you try to exit and try to go on, take a U-turn on Big Beaver, it's nearly impossible. There is no traffic light there. The neighbors are really struggling, especially during the peak hours. And even if sometimes it's a stretch, even to take a U-turn, exiting through Daly, try to go past the Rochester Road and even to take a U-turn to get to the freeway. Freeway is right next door, but it's not so easy to get to the freeway. That's the world that we are living in. Unfortunately, we signed up for it. Please don't make our lives any more worse than what it already is. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Chandra Siddharthan. I live in 1446 Heartland Drive, right behind the property we are discussing today. My biggest concern is the noise. I totally disagree with the noise study they presented today because I did the study. This is the noise level today without anything. It's around 60 decibel. US Department of Housing and Urban Study, they already given the guideline. Anything above 65 decibel is unacceptable. Okay. This is the one I recorded in Jack's Car Wash in Rochester Hills. This is almost 80 decibels. Do you think we can survive with this condition day to day, every day, as a residents? Definitely not. It's unacceptable to have this noise of 80 decibels living right behind us day in and day out. It's not one day. Every day we have to face it. The quality of life is going to get affected definitely. So I really request the Planning Commission to disapprove this. So I can only request, but this is going to spoil our quality of life. I understand the city try to generate revenue, but not on the cost of the residents' quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Makrand Fadke. I live at 1470 Heartland Drive, just behind the proposed rezoning. So I fully disagree with this rezoning. I will emphasize on the security part of this thing. My kids are young, they play in the background currently, and if you see, nobody has highlighted in the plan, but adjacent to this property, there is a play area in the Balkan Center, PACC, whatever. So the kids are always playing there in the evening, and in the holidays also, summer, they have summer camps and everything. So kids wander around everywhere. So there is high possibility that kids will go into this property, and there is a lot of flow of traffic there. And noise levels, security is a very concern. When they are closed, we don't know what cars will pull it in, because it's a free vacuum. So a lot of people will just try to use it. So I request you to don't do the rezoning for this. Other thing is regarding the traffic flow. Okay, it will itself, the Big Beaver itself is crowded these days, and slowing down it further will cause a lot of problems on Big Beaver. Next thing is about the need. We already have 2-3 car washes just next door on the Rochester Road, next to like 0.5 miles there. Why we need more car washes? I don't see a lot of car washes being done on the Rochester Road. There is no need. Car wash is not a smart zone, okay? We cannot allocate such a valuable property that we are allocating for the technology to be reallocated to the car wash, okay? That's all my points, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Venkat Aitraju. I live in 1410 Heartland, Troy, Michigan. And I just live 3 houses from the Jack's Car Wash here. I'm strongly opposing this rezoning. One is that this is actually a smart zone where you expect to get high technology companies. And especially Detroit right now, we are regenerating with all the electric vehicles. And we would like to have some technology companies coming up there. And having a car wash will really spoil the image right on the Big Beaver, which is a really main artery of our Troy. And also it affects adjoining businesses. Right now, probably you know, Altair is a very big office, $5 billion company right there. And it's going to spoil the entire image of the entire Troy, Big Beaver area. And this is just rezoning. It would have a significant impact. And also I echo all my other fellow neighbors' comments about noise, property values, and then this again, whole image of Troy that we are changing rezone with a very short-term view, but it will affect losing some of the companies coming up in our area and then losing to some other cities nearby. Thank you. I strongly oppose that.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Lokesh Jayachandran. I live in 1530 Heartland Drive, right behind the area. I moved to Troy from Rochester Hills for a better perspective. I paid a high price with the cost, you know how much it cost to move into Troy. My biggest concern is I and my wife both work from home. And during winter time, we can see Big Beaver from our house, from where we work. The noise. They talk about the machine noise and other things. What about the noise of the vehicles? If I'm doing a free car wash, I'm going to play music. I'm going to be 20 minutes waiting there. Just vacuuming? No. I don't want to hear that noise. I want to play music. That noise is not accounted there. And how do you want to spend your weekends? We work hard. We pay our taxes, everything on time. We are kind of like, want to have a peaceful Saturday and Sunday. And that is the busiest time of the day. We cannot spend in our backyard. We cannot invite any of our friends or anyone. It's going to be really hard. I have 2 little boys, and these car washes, when the cars are standing there, they don't control the fumes that come out of the vehicle. It's going to be standing, it's going to be running all the way. If you look at from the entrance till the car wash is done, the vehicle is not switched off. Even at the vacuum, the vehicles are running. So please consider this. Health and safety is the most important thing that you cannot pay. Right? We can buy anything in this world, but not the health. When the fumes comes to our neighborhood, where the kids are going to play, I don't want my kids to get sick. And please consider this and make a better decision. Put yourself in my shoes. Would you live there with these conditions? Would you let your kids play back in your backyard with the fumes coming in? Fumes don't smell. It's toxic. That's why we kind of are making our garage open. Don't run your car, heat it up inside the garage. It's not the smell. Still, it's going to kind of like affect you. So please consider this and make our lives better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening everyone. My name is Nand Kishore. I live by 1518 Heartland Drive, just behind the car, this plant. So, first thing, smart zone. How smart planning is this about arranging the Jack's Car Wash Center here? I totally disagree with this. Another, car wash bringing the hundreds of cars per day into our backyard. We already have a San Marino Club, we already have a sports center, hockey ring. There are a lot of cars in our backyard, and we are bringing one more venue to bring more cars to our backyard. Spring study shows that spring is the season where the most of the car wash can happen. And and spring is the season our Heartland family comes to the backyard and spend the time with our family. And what we will have, the unhealthy air. Do we want that unhealthy air to be in already, or there are a lot of, Big Beaver is there, San Marino Club is there, Sport Ring is there. So why one more venue to bring more cars? Otherwise, it will be very unhealthy and unlivable place, not for us, for anyone of the future generation. So please consider this and try to avoid this venue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. My name is Vivek Sandel. I'm at 1434 Heartland. I will keep it short because all of you have already asked some of the concerns that we have talked about. I know, Todd, you said to come in peace, but really everything you're doing right now is disturbing the peace. So
Okay, you have to
really
direct your
appreciate that,
comments
right?
up here, please.
So I just want to make sure, I know they have good intentions. Actually, to me, it just comes across as, so in our petition, we talked about many other car washes in the city of Troy. To me, it just seems like we're becoming the car wash capital of the metro area. I don't know why, but definitely don't need more car washes in the city. I'll just make a couple more points to one of the data that they shared. So they said 400 cars per day. That's an average. I would love to know how many per weekend, right? So that's one thing we have to say. Averages always wash out. What is the worst situation? Second thing, they talked about the fact, and I think many of you asked the question as to what happens if people vacuum first and then do car wash. They feel like they can train people to behave differently. I have kids. Many of us, if you can teach your children to behave differently, I would love to hear from you, right? So now imagine if 25% of those people do vacuum first and car wash later. That's 100 cars per day on average doing the U-turn on Big Beaver. Not a very nice situation, right? The other thing they talked about was, so I think the smart zone was a very, very good point. And I've been here long enough. I remember when the automation alley went up, we have signboards on the road, on highways saying, Troy, the home of automation alley. That's not automation alley, right? We bought houses in this area because we were coming to a place which is a very diverse economic system. I mean, we applaud you for what you've done to Troy. It's a mix of retail, commerce, industrial, residential, a very good mix, right? And you've kept them separate. And this is kind of violating that whole principle, right? So I think that's, I mean, I will not repeat everything that has been said, but to me, these are very key points which make the city what it is. So please keep it that way. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the commission? Come on.
Excuse me. My name is Dan Bouchot. I live 94 Hickory, which is actually, I think, southwest of this development. So I'm going to bring a different perspective here, I think, rather than from the residential point behind it. I look at it, we know that innovative use of office space is going to become a more difficult problem as we move forward, rather than an easier problem as we move forward. Proof of that is on Kurtz Boulevard. We're repurposing office space, first of all. Secondly, this is a small parcel, so I don't envy anybody trying to figure out what to put there. Having said all of that, two things. Smart zone, I agree. I'm not so sure. Secondly, I've lived within a stone throw of Big Beaver for 55 years. I started down on the east side, where we call it 16 Mile Road. And if you want to see an example of zoning kind of gone bad, go to the east side and drive down Garfield. I worry that what we're doing here is setting a precedent that's going to make Big Beaver, which has been the golden corridor, look like Garfield. I think that this might set that precedent, and for that, I oppose this, but I'm still not sure I know what I would put there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the commission? Seeing no one coming up, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. And I believe if Mr. Savinin.
While I have everyone's attention, there were some comments made kind of inferring that the Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for this application. And it is not. This is a rezoning application, and by state statute and by local law, the Planning Commission is a recommending body. So they're not, we talked about earlier, they're not deliberating tonight, but they will deliberate in the future. And at that point, this will be a recommending body only. They'll make a recommendation, and then the ultimate decision will go to City Council. So there'll be another public hearing at City Council where the board that's responsible for making the decision, City Council, will have a public hearing that you'll be able to attend and also comment at the public hearing.
Thank you for that clarification. I think the meeting we're looking at is the meeting in December for the next time it's going to come back to us. Is that correct, Mr.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't get in front of City Council till the new year.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We'll answer your questions after the meeting. So I wanted to bring it back to the commission, and I think the only action we can take on this matter is a motion to postpone. Is that correct, Mr. Dufresne? So. Is there a motion?
I just had 2 points, if you don't mind. I think they've figured out they got to do a sound study, because I think that's important. And I hope everybody else here, we all live in Troy too. I lived here for 27 years. I see your plight. Trust me, we understand this. We live here also. I'm just curious. I don't need an answer. I don't really want an answer, but you bought next to a parcel that might get it developed someday. I was intrigued for me to see what could be. So you could have a parking lot going right to your property. So trust me, I think I know these guys well. We know what you're dealing with, and we're there. We understand. I just want to say those things, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Is there a motion to postpone? Yes, Mr. Buechner.
I'd make that motion.
All right.
Second.
Second. Who's Mr. Fox seconds it. So the motion is to postpone to whenever you get it on the agenda. I assume it's the December meeting is what you're talking about.
First meeting in December.
Okay.
And it will.
And yes, Mr. Carlisle.
I think the question that was being asked is December 12th, it will be another public hearing.
Yes.
So the public will have another chance to speak at that in addition to tonight. And then if the Planning Commission makes a recommendation either for or against, it would then go to City Council, again, probably after the new year for their determination on the rezoning.
Thank you.
Just to clarify that it will be a public hearing again in December.
Yep. All right. So the motion is in front of the commission for postponing action on this. I guess we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I did not hear who supported the
I
motion.
think Mr. Fox did.
Thank you. Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
Ms. Malalahali.
Yes.
Ms. Parakis.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Bakener.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, it's been postponed, and it will be in front of us in the December meeting. And even if you spoke tonight, you can speak again that evening. And in fact, when it goes to City Council, you can speak to City Council at that public hearing as well. All right, next on the agenda is public comment for items on the agenda. So anyone from the public wishes to address the commission on an item that's on the agenda. Seeing no one rushing to the front, then we'll bring it back for Planning Commission comment, and we'll start over with Ms. Zarnecki. Do you have any comments you'd like to share?
I have none. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just one moment. So you want to speak to us for public comment for items on the agenda?
On the agenda, yes.
Okay.
So this is beyond the public. So a couple of things. One, I raised my comment earlier when Mr. Savidan was speaking. So we appreciate the fact that we are now getting another hearing. But I think one of our concerns is that this item, we would like to see what the city council thinks before the elections. So if there's a way to, to me, I feel like, it is a supposition that the applicant saw the pushback and is pushing it back. I mean, all of us are voters, right? So I think this is something I feel which seems to be a convenient diversion, if you can call it. So to me, that seems a little odd. We would like to see the city council's opinion at least before the election, just to let you know.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Second is, I think you hopefully answered the question. I think you answered, Mr. Fox. It is not clear to us, so we get to make public comment today. Then we come back on December 12th and we have an opportunity again.
Yes.
And then if you do make a recommendation, then it goes to the city council. And does the city council allow public comment?
Yes.
Okay, I think that is clarification we wanted to get.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Parakis.
I just would like to make a comment just for their benefit. It's definitely they're invited to come back, but it's not to say that it's necessary. We've heard it's going to go in the minutes, it's on record. So we're not saying that you have to come back. We're not saying not to come back, but I want you to know that you've been heard tonight, and we will remember that in December. It's not like we're starting from scratch. Is that fair?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yeah, I guess if I was a discerning resident who was, cared about this issue but did not have limitless time, my personal recommendation would be, because the city council is going to be the commission that's making a final decision, they take our recommendations quite seriously. So what we end up recommending here at this body is going to greatly influence their decision, but then also you have an opportunity to speak directly to them where they will make that final vote. So I would recommend, again, as someone without all the time in the world, maybe kind of picking and choosing those that later meeting with the city council would be my thought.
Okay, we'll go back then to Planning Commission comment. Ms. Zarnecki said she had nothing to share.
Thank you.
Mr. Beaver, nothing. Ms. Malalahali?
I'm good.
Mr. Hudson? Nothing. Ms. Parakis?
I just wanted to say, I thought it was sort of interesting when I was reviewing this application that in the city of Troy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the city of Troy, there is no, car washes are not permitted anywhere on their own. It's all by special use, and it's only permitted by special use in GB, IB, and PV, which I thought was sort of interesting. So I know in the presentation by the attorney, there was some talk about, permitted, but it is by special use, which makes it not permitted according to the way we put the P in our zoning ordinance. So I just wanted to make sure we were all clear on that. One other comment, because there are still some people here. I just want everyone to know that as a planning commissioner, we do not take into consideration the revenue to the city. When anything that comes before us, it's not under our purview to even consider the revenue. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. Mr. Tagle?
Nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Fox?
Just two quick things. One related to topics we've discussed tonight and one not. So there was also, just during some of the public comment, there was a conversation of the concept of like a delay tactic or a stall tactic. One thing I do want to just put out there is that the city does lay out these processes for a very particular reason, and that would be lawsuits. We have to provide every applicant the same level of opportunity. And if we were to deviate from that, kind of cherry pick which applicants we put through the process, that puts us in a huge potential legal liability, which if the city loses a lawsuit, that ultimately ends up that taxpayer funds are then going to pay off the lawsuit. So I want to say that as someone who has come to public body meetings very much under the impression that the city is trying to sabotage the public voice, a lot of the procedures are in place for a very specific reason to try to prevent taxpayer funds from going to the loss of a lawsuit. Also, the unrelated topic, we attended the planning conference this past month, and I'm going to be pursuing the Master Citizen Planner certification. So there's the Citizen Planner that took place at the conference. I've been certified in that. I'm going to go into pursuing the Master Citizen Planner, and part of that process will be me giving a sort of presentation to a public body. I'm also on the ZBA, so I don't know if that might be a better one for me to present at, but I guess I just wanted to make y'all aware of that. Don't be surprised if down the pipeline you see me as a presenter as opposed to a member of the body. So.
And
We look
Mr.
forward to
Savant
it.
says you're making the presentation here, so.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
This should be the body. In front of it, you come.
Sounds good.
Ms. Dufresne?
Yes, this is me looking out for Ms. Zarnecki, our recording secretary. I noticed that a lot of people didn't sign in on the sign-in sheet. Would you like to ask people who are still here? Because I know the spelling of some of the names might be...
The spelling may will be very challenging,
Yeah.
but I believe most of the public speakers did sign in before the meeting started.
Oh, I didn't realize that happened. I just noticed they weren't doing it there. Okay. Looking out for you, Ms.
Thank you, Ms.
They were being very efficient tonight, so.
Good, good.
Mr. Savant?
Yes, there was a rezoning that went before City Council since our last Planning Commission meeting. It was known as the Encore rezoning, Butterfield and Todd, a rezoning from P parking and R1C to BB Big Beaver, and it was approved by City Council.
Thank you. Mr. Carline?
No comment.
I just wanted to mention first, say I joined Mr. Fox in that citizen planning, and I'll let him go first as far as the presentation.
Yeah, we caused a lot of trouble.
All right, no. And I also wanted to thank everyone for their comments tonight. Everyone was very civil in their presentation on both sides of the issue, so thank you very much. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.